there's lots going on with the world economy right now. Lots of different things that are going on, both in with the dollar and the different systems in BRICS. And Dylan, what are your viewpoints right now on how we're looking at how the world economy is going in your world?
Oh man, that's a big question. What are your viewpoints on the world economy? Man.
Yeah, like give it an easy one here. Why not, Dylan? Go ahead. Tell us what you think is happening globally all over the world with everything about the economy.
Yeah, sum it up in 50 words or less. How's it going?
I think I think there's more pain to come. I think there's a lot of things that haven't played out. But we all live in this high time preference ADD world where we hyper focus on events 1 to 2 week cycles, and then we think it's over, but it's not, right? This stuff, especially when you're talking about global economy, this stuff takes time to play out. And so a kind of flashbang event that happens that draws everyone's attention, maybe exciting for a week or two, but you don't really see the downstream effects for a few months, potentially years down the road. And I think we're coming to a point where we're going to start seeing more of those downstream effects from events that have happened over the past several years, because those little things start adding up. So I think right now it's kind of, and I think people can feel it, and this is what I feel, is like, don't get too settled into a false sense of comfort.
Yeah, this is something that we definitely, Patrick and I deal a lot with our membership and what we deal with it. We actually just finished up, I just finished up an article with my friend Daniel Pace, and I finished out an article. Let me share my screen real quick. That will, whoops, there we go. There. So we did it. It was follow Yellow Bricks Road. So it's a top topic that we talk about a lot, is the BRICS nations. And while we like here in the U.S. and I assume most of our audience is going to be based in the U.S. because that's where we're at, but who knows? But for the most part, the Western media focuses on the dollar and Europe and the United States. But there's a lot of things going on in the world and a lot of nations. And speaking of elections, like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of questions about what's going on in Brazil and their elections. But the BRICS is a term that came up in the last 20 years or so about all these different countries. You have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Soon to be probably Saudi Arabia will take over the S. But these are big countries, and you can see by the numbers on the screen, you get over 40% of the world's population, over 20% of the world's GDP, almost 20% of the world's trade, like lots of the land, lots of the people, lots of the voting power. This is basically where the world is heading. And BRICS is a big deal, and it's coming down the pipeline, whether we like it or not. And we also talk about the One Belt, One Road initiative coming from China, and we'll talk about that if we want to as well. But this is a big deal. Like, for the last 50 years or so, with the dollar being the petrodollar and driving the world economy as the world reserve currency, now other countries are saying, hey, what you guys left the gold standard, and we don't like how it's all fiat money and based on oil, and we want to find an alternative. So that's what a lot of people are looking at. So Patrick, what are your thoughts here?
My thoughts on the global perspective would be, I think we have generally such a narrow-minded view in the U.S. And I want to maybe zoom out just a little bit and think about, some of us really understand that the inflation numbers are lagging. Some of us understand that the damage has yet to be done from FTX in full force. Some of us forget that there's a lot more happening than our little bubble here going on. And one of the things I want to take a look at, just the failing currency throughout the globe. And I think those failing currencies are going to create necessity. People are going to become just in dire need for resources, and they're not going to be able to afford them. Something that comes to my mind is Heresy Financial, Joe Brigham. He brought up a really great point yesterday that I listened to him, and he said that food is not a fundamental human right. So to us to think about food being a fundamental human right is kind of weird, but he's correct, because if it requires someone else's labor or someone else's resources by force, then it cannot be called a right. So to me, I'm looking at all these people who are going to be giving up, their rights, and they're going to be getting back what they think is some kind of CBDC or food stimulus payments or whatnot. And to me, this is just priming the pump for something that I'm really not looking forward to. We know it's going to fail, but for that to happen, this is what I've been concerned about for a while with our community. I've been talking about, I'm not certain what it's going to do to impact, the entire U.S. economy And what's that event that's going to happen? FTX looked like definitely a catalyst to whatever that was, but it's still not there yet. So when I'm looking at elections and I'm looking at the economic impacts that we're having from elections, it's not really anything favorable. There's really nothing happening. Only thing that I saw happening in the US is just another road barrier. The House and Senate now aren't going to agree. So now there's going to be less stuff being done no matter which way we're going. It's just motion. So for me, my big concerns are what's happening globally and what we're not noticing that's happening globally, and how that's going to impact our US dollar and how that's going to impact the food supply chain. Um, that stuff is just going to be on the front of what I'm looking at. So I understand what kind of resources I should be looking for over here on my end that I should maybe stock up on.
And I wanted to just chime in there on that. I think a critical thing is recognizing that we've lived in a world that has legitimized abstract power. That's like rule of law, right? And the way you maintain or acquire that abstract power, in my opinion, is that you typically get it through actual power, like physical power, kinetic power, force, by either demonstrating literally that you're stronger than someone or something else, or showing such a great show of force that someone chooses not to challenge you and they choose to submit to whatever your rule set is. And I think because of that, around the world, like you can get very complacent. And what we're seeing is, especially with all these small currencies collapsing, and these are in lots of places where they do have resources, and they've been historically selling their resources for promises, right? For these fiat dollars that have consistently become worth less and less and less. And they're realizing, hey, we have these resources, and it's no longer as valuable for us to sell it to one, this one buyer. There's other buyers out there that may be giving us a better deal, and they may start taking that deal. And so when those currencies and stuff break down, and the countries that have those resources, you get a shuffling of power, you get restructuring of different types of global relationships that are happening that we might not necessarily be seeing, just from our position, just in here in America, and just from what we're exposed to. But these deals are being done, behind closed doors, and they're happening. And what's really happening is you're getting different, and you showed the BRICS nations, you're getting different large entities basically acquiring resources to build up their capability to project power, to protect their positions, or to exert more control over different resources across the globe. And I think that's something important to consider of what's going on here. Like I've been rewatching Game of Thrones, and if you guys have seen it, terrible ending. But when you watch what happens from the beginning, as soon as there's weakness or vulnerability detected, you got all the separate interests that were joined together by, it was a loose trust, then start trying to cut their own deals and trying to create all these power grabs, and you can see how quickly it can descend into chaos. And I hope that doesn't happen for the world, but guarantee that kind of stuff is going on right now. I think it's all due to this breakdown of trust in the system. And so that's a big problem that we need to talk about and focus on and learn how to deal with.